Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Welcome back. This is our final segment for this Saturday morning. And we're joined by Mabel Simpson. We've been talking a lot about real estate, and one of the things that people forget about is consulting an attorney. And so, Mabel, welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Very cool. Well, first of all, let's talk about how did you get into law and how did you get into this specialty?
I was doing oil and gas. I was a landman years ago after I got out of college, and saw that all my paperwork I delivered to the attorney that wrote the title opinions. He was making a lot of money, and I watched him, hung out with him. He was an older gentleman, about 80. I said, I can do what you do.
Wow.
So I saved my money and went to law school after 3 years and started practicing after that.
I love stories like that. And has it been a fun ride?
Oh, my gosh. It's like a hobby.
Yeah?
I love what I do. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, I'm passionate about real estate, oil, gas, water, and land, anything related to those.
Okay, so let's talk about the value of having an attorney and consulting an attorney when you start to do some oil and gas stuff or some real estate stuff. People sometimes forget I should probably consult an attorney before buying that patch of land or deciding to put a building on it.
I think it's important. A lot of people are hesitant sometimes that they don't know. There's the unknown of what it's going to cost. And my philosophy has always been, you know what, walk in and ask an attorney who's experienced in that area. Say, can I buy a couple of hours of your time? Take a look at the contract. If it's a complex situation, at least that counsel can say, you know what, this is going to take additional time, but I can give you a cursory overview. But at least you have a nodding acquaintance with some of the details that are in the contract. Or the prospect of what you're going to purchase. You know, hey, I want to put a 5-story building on that tract of land. You want to talk to somebody who knows what the municipal regulations are and what the development code is and things that are going to affect what you ultimately are eligible to achieve on that particular piece of property.
We were talking off the air about a kind of a scenario that we came up with together, that if you had a piece of land and your neighbor next door wanted a little piece of it and you didn't consult an attorney and said, sure, you can have that, you could be in big trouble.
You could, because you might own, say for residential, if you were to purchase a piece of property and that property was larger than all your other neighbors and you had no reason to understand why, but you were going to purchase the entire tract that the seller owned, only to find out later after you purchased it that a portion of it was an illegal subdivision, which is subdivision not meaning an entire rooftops of residential, but a smaller piece of a larger tract. And that smaller piece of the larger tract was your neighbor's tract. But when you go to build, the city's already put restrictions on setbacks, et cetera, so you can't just build what you want. You have to now go back in and resurvey it, replat it, to be able to put what you want on it. That's just an example in residential. You go out and development of smaller tracts that are commercial, same thing. You have to know how to cobble them together properly with regard to the ordinances that are in every municipality to do what you want to do.
Let's talk a little bit about oil and gas because, oil and gas has been in the news quite a bit in the last year just with the prices going down. Does that mean that your practice as far as oil and gas slows down because not as much stuff is happening, or does it pick up because there's more disputes?
Not so much the disputes. The oil and gas piece on the review of what the title is or who owns what's beneath the surface, which we call the subsurface, that slows down because exploration is not going on right now because of the prices. The oil and gas companies have slowed down, but they have a lot of business in their companies now that is still eligible for work as far as a title attorney or an oil and gas attorney. And when the disputes come up, that's based on the contracts that the people have signed with regard to royalties. And if you're not delivering product or selling it, the homeowners that lease the land say, why aren't you sending me my check? Well, because there's not a market to sell it. Mm-hmm. Or if there's a market, we can't sell it at a loss. Therefore, we're going to go back to the contract, which is the roadmap of the relationship, and explain why we're not getting product delivered. So
I remember about a decade ago when fracking was just starting to become something that everybody understood, that there were oil and gas companies coming up, knocking on doors, soliciting for mineral rights, and a lot of people signed those rights away. Do those last forever, or is it a finite piece of time that
if you're it depends on what they presented. We have done litigation in the past where somebody would present what they represented to be a lease, and substantively that document was actually a transfer of ownership of the minerals themselves. The transfer of ownership of the minerals is a permanent ownership. It's like owning your house. When you buy it, you're vested in title. When you transfer minerals, you're vested in the ones that you acquire. A lease is just a temporary during the time that particular company is producing on the property that you lease to them.
I'm going to ask an offbeat question, but it occurred to me when I saw this kind of land grab, or just everybody was soliciting for mineral rights. If a oil and gas company, basically swindled an old lady and sold her or bought her rights for far below what she should have been selling them for, is there a cause of action there? Could you as an attorney come in and represent her and say, there's no way she should have signed this deal, we need you to rip this up and do her right?
Well, that's a fact-intense question. I think you would have to go back to the transaction, ask her what she recalled, what was represented. Did she sign anything with regard to what was represented before the final closing? Final closing meaning she signed and was paid the consideration for the right she delivered. What she understood, unfortunately, that happens a lot, not only in oil and gas, but timber, water. There's different rights that you can sever from the surface of the land and subsurface. And sometimes the people don't go out, and if someone hands them a contract, they might feel a little intimidated, or I could really use that money. So you have to look at the facts as they were presented. And it's always best to say, you know what, leave your documentation here. Let me go buy an hour or two of somebody's time, an attorney who's familiar with this, or someone who can help me to evaluate exactly what am I giving up for the value you're willing to pay me. But you have to look at the transaction. It's not easy to say yes or no she would have a cause of action unless you unwound kind of what the facts were at the time.
Right. Mabel Simpson is my guest. That's simpsonlaw.org. Let's talk a little bit about the environmental area of your practice. I noticed on your website you have a bunch of different services. And when I think environmental, I think about Julia Roberts and what was the movie?
I know exactly
Aaron
what you're
Brockovich.
talking.
I mean, I think about kind of suing a pollutant or a polluter or something like that. I mean, is that what that means?
No.
Okay.
I mean, not with regard to our practice. Our practice, we do corporate defense when it comes to oil and gas, land, water, et cetera, or just business defense. We are not plaintiffs' bar. We're not plaintiffs' attorneys. But when it comes to environmental, what we look at is from a real estate development perspective, because a lot of times the lenders will require a phase 1 environmental study or a phase 2 environmental study. We have clients who own gas stations who have what they call underground storage tanks, or USTs. You have to comply with different state agencies and their environmental quality requirements when you either transfer ownership or operation, or if you're selling the property, whoever's going to purchase it, if I represent the purchaser, is going to want to do some investigation on those USTs or underground storage tanks, as have they leaked, has there been a cleanup, et cetera. So you're not left holding the bag. One of those things you would do in due diligence to investigate. So we track all of that.
Gotcha. Well, that does make a lot of sense. It seems like when I was covering news and I would get out in the country, sometimes I would see people, taking old batteries and just throwing them out. And I mean, that's illegal, isn't it?
It's illegal. And also it's not just throwing old batteries out, but you have in the more rural areas, you have septic systems, and you want to make sure whoever's got a well that's near a septic system, that the septic system is current so that it doesn't contaminate or infiltrate that water source that other person is using for their household use.
What are some other areas of practice that you're focused on?
Well, we have business, anything from creating a business. I loved your segment earlier on EO because I've prided myself forever being an entrepreneur. And so, awesome. But creating a business is learning how to operate it. From beginning of filing with the Secretary of State to setting up your bookkeeping and accounting. And when you sign both sides of the check, you have a lot at risk.
Right.
And so setting up the business to help people understand. We do IRS representation for business owners.
Okay.
People that don't necessarily pay their taxes timely or the amount they owe. Doesn't mean they're bad people, just means they're great tradesmen. They're just not great bookkeepers.
Let's talk about that, because we're coming up on the end of the year, and there are probably some small business deductions that people should be taking that they forget to take. Or what are some big ones in your mind that all entrepreneurs should be looking at when it comes to deductions?
Well, entrepreneurs need to look at the things that change. There was a lot of advanced depreciation items that were available that were going to expire last December 2014. There's utilization of vehicles that entrepreneurs could utilize. There are transportation pre-tax deductions, so that limits your payroll tax when you do have employees on your payroll. There's a host of things out there. Just like it's best to have someone buy a couple of hours of a lawyer's time,
right.
Also buy a tax professional, so that and not the day before December 31, but something
right.
now that you can do a little planning to help you get past the hurdles. Everyone's having expense with regard to health care, and find out some other avenues that can be done before the close of the year so that you're in compliance and you're also saving money.
So if you're thinking about making a purchase, but you can't decide whether you should do it in December or January, it could make a big difference, couldn't it?
Oh my gosh, could make a huge difference,
So consulting an attorney like yourself.
I think if you're going to purchase something, consult an attorney and figure out how much do you want to put into it. The bank rates are good right now. Money is inexpensive. There's a lot of banks that love owner-occupied, so buy something, fix it up, just like your first guess.
Right.
Get it in there and make it your own and carry it forward and expand your business.
Do you like working with entrepreneurs and startups?
Love it. Love it.
What do you find? Is there a commonality? I mean, are they more like roll the dice risk takers that really need somebody like you in their life to say, now, pump the brakes on that?
They're inspiring. They're very inspiring because they're constantly creative, they're innovative, but they're focused. They know what their widget is. And business is business, but if you know what your widget is, if you have somebody that can direct the business, a great entrepreneur is one that says, I'm really good at this widget. I'm not going to try to learn everything you do, Mabel, but I'm good at this widget. Will you bring up the rear for me? And that's what I love about entrepreneurs.
We've got about a minute left to talk about your business philosophy, because one of the things that impresses me about you is you're just a very kind, not just knowledgeable person, but a kind person who really does right by the client, and it's not about how many hours I can bill. It's whether this is a good fit.
And I appreciate that. Thank you for that compliment. I do pride myself on making sure the customer understands. I'm a visual person, so I want the customer to understand when they come in and want assistance from my firm, that they get it and they understand. They wrap their brain around what I'm going to deliver for them in the future, and they tell me what their budget is, and I say, fine, we'll stop at that point, or they say, we just want you to make it work. So we work with whatever their constraints are, or unlimited constraints when they have a goal to achieve. We're there to help them.
Excellent. We've got about 30 seconds left. How do people get a hold of you?
They can go to my website. It's www.simpsonlaw.org. Or they can call me directly at 972-783-6384. Or just come by the office at 1755 North Collins Boulevard in Richardson, Texas.
Awesome. Mabel Simpson, simpsonlaw.org, my guest. Thank you so much for joining me on the Jeff Crilley Show. And that'll just about do it for this Saturday morning. We will see you back here next Saturday at 11.
Thanks, Jeff.
KFXR, Dallas, Fort Worth. Talk Radio 1190.
An iHeartRadio station.